Welcome to the Caregiver Relief Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Carbo, an RN. This episode is sponsored by myvitalvault.net, your all-in-one life organizer for aging adults and caregivers. It's designed to help you securely store your essential legal, medical, and emergency information in one easy-to-access place. Because when a crisis hits, being prepared can make all the difference. Join our Caregiver Relief community, a warm, welcoming space where you can connect with other caregivers, ask questions, share stories, and find support from people who truly understand. Visit community.caregiverrelief.com to join now, because caregiving is one of the hardest and most meaningful things you'll ever do, and no one should have to do it alone. And if this episode speaks to you, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. Every click helps us reach more caregivers who need encouragement, resources, and hope. And today's episode is all about preparing before a crisis happens. My guest, Richard A. Beckner, is an elder law attorney with an extensive background in healthcare, which gives him a unique perspective on the intersection of legal and medical planning. He helps individuals and families protect their futures through estate planning, trusts, and essential life documents. Richard, thank you so much for being here today. I know you had a very busy morning, and I'm glad you were able to take time out of your busy schedule to share this very important information. I know that what you have, our listeners are eager to learn about because it can help them avoid chaos and crisis. Let's dive in.
Great. Thank you for having me, Diane. I very much appreciate it. Yeah,
I'm glad. This is such an important topic, and we can't talk about it enough. Before we dive into the legal side, can you share a little bit about what inspired you to transition from healthcare into elder law?
Be happy to do that. So I've been an attorney for almost 25 years, and the sole focus for the first about 20 was, in essence, healthcare. In the past 5 years, I really saw and observed the need to have more of a presence in trying to assist people. So that's one of the, I'm a person of faith. I think, I don't know, I mentioned this to you, Diane. I'm a person of faith.
Yeah.
I prayed about it, and I really saw a value in representing, my faith as I engage with people. So I started a law firm called Faithful Elder Law Solutions. And our purpose is just to collaborate with people and to try to help them out if I can. I come with a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Because of that, I can say to somebody pretty quickly, yeah, I can help you, or let me refer you to somebody else that does this.
At 72, I do the same thing, Richard. I am a person of faith, and I feel that I could be retired now, but there's such a need for information to be given to people. And I know I have enough knowledge. That's why I love people like you, because you help me bring important topics to the forefront of our family caregivers. Why do you believe it's so important to have essential life papers signed before a medical emergency or crisis?
Sure. That's an easy, as you were posing the question, I was thinking, oh my gosh. So the most important thing, and I think any attorney will tell you this, that does this level of service, the most important thing is having powers of attorney in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it can be what's often called a durable power of attorney or a financial power of attorney. Tons of labels for the same thing. It's in essence a document that, to the extent that you become incapacitated, you can have a loved one step in to your shoes, in essence, and help you pay the bills or help you pay for somebody to come and care for you. So that's the important thing. The other thing is what's called a healthcare power of attorney. And that enables it. Think about a situation where perhaps you have a loved one or a spouse that's in medical care, and the medical practitioner or the doctor needs to communicate, and they can't with you as the patient because maybe you're unconscious or what have you. If you have the right power of attorney in place, as someone that's trusted and knows your wishes, they can be an invaluable service for the medical professionals.
I'm going to add more.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to add one more.
Okay.
Advanced directives.
Yes.
And the only reason why, because from my perspective, the power of attorneys are absolutely the number one things, because you need that information for financial and for health. But the advanced directives are just as important in my perspective, because those healthcare professionals are going to share information with you, and you want to be able to be able to honor the wishes of your loved one in case they're unable to do that.
That's
So, and I
exactly
know
right.
that's important as well, but that's in fact, for me, that's the most important one. But you're right. You have to have the POAs in place.
Yeah. I apologize, because in my mind, advanced directive, healthcare power of attorney, whenever I execute those on clients, they come in tandem. So I apologize for not breaking that up.
No. It's just the medical person in me. And I teach this so much. You got to get those advanced directives.
Yeah.
Now, what documents do you consider must-haves for every adult, regardless of age or health?
Sure. So what I'd already covered, the advanced directive, the durable power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney. The other thing is really important is that standard will. It's a way to express your wishes to your loved ones after you're no longer here.
Yeah.
Unless there's huge, vast advances in medical science, we're all going to pass at some point. So it's good to think ahead. It's good to think about those children or grandchildren, or that charity that you really want to be able to provide for. It's a great way to express your values to others.
Exactly. Encourage people. I tell people anybody over the age of 18 should have a power of attorney and an advanced directive. And, and then they hear will, they're thinking I'm crazy. But we don't know what we don't know about our lives and what situation we may be placed in where we need someone to make decisions for us. So I'm very adamant about teaching that. I know my caregivers, I still have, and I can tell you right now, I have an 85-year-old client right now who has she has a sister who's disabled, mentally challenged, and she didn't have anything in place, nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, and I just had to sit with her several times to explain that at 85, you don't have much time. You're lucky we're able to sit and discuss this. And it finally, after 2 years of working with her, she sat down and put everything in place. But one of the things I would like for you to be able to explain is the difference between a will, a trust, the powers of attorney, and when each is appropriate.
Sure. Yeah. So what I often advise people, so I'll say Diane's calling me and she's interested in some discussion about what do I need to do to protect myself and my family. And first to right out of the gate is going to suggest the power of attorney. Secondly is a will. And then depending on our conversation that we have, some people have certain assets that they want to be able to control even after their passing. And what I mean by that is they want perhaps their children or a charity or their grandchildren to receive X amount of assets in a certain way even. Let's build it out to where my grandchildren maybe don't inherit my estate until they reach a certain age. There are rules against doing that in a standard will. And I don't get into the rule against perpetuities and all these crazy things that are in the law. And that's through a trust. So with a trust, if you can create a trust, that works in tandem with a will. And at that point, we would call it a pour-over will. So it incorporates the trust. And it also can incorporate even additional assets. Maybe you've accrued assets over the years that you forgot to include in the trust. The will working in tandem with the trust can address that. And oftentimes I have people that want a trust because they don't want to go through probate. Probate in our region takes anywhere from 9 to 12 months on a good day or a good year. It takes some time and it's expensive. So a lot of people will establish a trust for that reason, because they can avoid probate. You had a question?
Explain how important it is for to try to avoid probate and what probate means, because I know a lot of clients don't understand that.
Sure. Yeah. So in essence, if for some reason I pass and I will pass one day. But when I pass, if I don't have a will, or I do have a will even, but let's say I die without a will, I die intestate, there has to be a probate process where a judge will look at my estate and they'll say, okay, who are the creditors? Who are the people that are interested in Richard's assets? And that, as you can imagine, takes a lot of time looking into that and trying to determine what's what, so to speak. So what a good trust does, it basically presents, it can be shared with the probate judge and say, hey, look, there's really no reason. The trust covers everything. Yeah, it can be kept private. A lot of people, I have a couple clients, they're pretty high value clients. And because of that reason, they want their trust and they want their assets to be private, because a probate proceeding is public. Anybody right now can go. I live in Boone County, Kentucky. My law firm's in Boone County, Kentucky. So if I pass right now and I don't have a trust, it's going to go through probate. And it's not like I have millions and millions of dollars, but if I did, it would be available. So, and it, like the looky-loos of the people that are just curious, that's public information. They can look it up.
And so many people are so private about their financials, and that's why it's so hard for them to put all of this in place. I have a question I hear often. I have families, the seniors, they don't want to do anything, but they want to everybody believes they can pass their home and all their assets down to their family members. But with the way we have all the changes in our healthcare system, Medicare, we're going to a cost-saving platform. And it's very real. Medicare Advantage right now is charging a copay of $200 to $500 a day. And then that means that it's going to come out of pocket. And there's going to be a time, and I know because I've seen it in the past, where the nursing homes will put a lien if you end up in a nursing home, and I'm sure assisted livings will start doing it too. Of course, assisted livings will kick you out if you run out of money, and they make sure they know how much you have exactly up to the penny. But people are no longer going to be able to pass their homes down unless they put it in a trust. Is that true?
Yeah, that could be. There's a lot of, it depends, and you'll get an attorney to tell you that all the time. It depends.
Yes.
So where I think your question's coming from, Diane, is you have an individual so there's two scenarios that I see. It's one, it's like an emergency situation where it's a crisis.
Yes.
You need to be admitted to a long-term care facility yesterday.
Yes.
There are steps that can be taken. There are trusts that can be created. There are rules that can be followed. And these are all federal and state law rules that a competent attorney can make sure that you abide by and handle to get into that facility. But and you mentioned changes that, for example, so there's that retroactive eligibility for Medicaid, for example. I'm just pulling this out there. You were talking about Medicare. I can talk for hours about either one. But for example, Medicaid, if you have a long-term care facility that accepts Medicaid, you could do a retroactive application. So you could actually, in that crisis situation, Richard needs the treatment right now. He's in the facility. The Medicaid facility, the facility that accepts Medicaid, could treat me with the understanding that there's going to be an application filed and it's going to get approved at some point. They could do it for 90 days. Now in Kentucky, it's only 60 days. It's been shortened. So there's things like that has to be discussed with an attorney, or that can actually really convey what the guidelines are and the issues are. Medicare, you have to demonstrate there's rehabilitation. It's occurring. So there's a limit to how long you can be hospitalized if you're on Medicare.
Even traditional Medicare is kicking people out. The reimbursement rate for a rehab is almost nil right now. So facilities get a higher level of reimbursement for not providing care. And while they tell us we have 100 days of rehab, that no longer is true, because what we're seeing is Medicare Advantage is sending home people in the 11th to 14th day, whether they're ready or not, and on the 20th day. And having spoken to several CEOs and several facilities where I'm seeing unsafe discharges to home, they're saying they're not meeting the Medicare guidelines. And I will tell you right now, the Medicare guidelines have not changed. The money to enforce those, if those Medicare guidelines is what's changed. And that's what we're seeing. So family caregivers are having to become more personally responsible for providing the care that was once provided by professionals. So, I do want to get into Medicaid a little bit and to explain the spend down approach. Could you do that and tell me, because there are people now, Medicaid's going to be very real for them with all the changes in our healthcare system.
Yeah, so I'll speak to it at a high level because I could really get into the weeds and we could spend the remainder of the time talking about all.
I know. Well, we've got other important things to talk about too.
Yeah, but really Medicaid, and people always think when you hear the term Medicaid, people always think, oh, okay, that's for maybe someone that's severely disabled or someone that's really low income. That's not actually the case. There are circumstances and situations where you can, through the work and use of a competent estate planning attorney, can qualify, at least on the books, for Medicaid. And it's completely above board. It's completely legal. States, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, a lot of places that are Commonwealths recognize it. It's just, you're being extremely transparent, that you're going through it very meticulously in demonstrating, okay, here is my need and here is why on the books I qualify for Medicaid.
I want to talk about the spend down
a
little bit, only because I am encouraging, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong about that. I encourage every family caregiver to put a family caregiver contract or personal care agreement in place. Many are insulted when I say that, but they don't understand that if they're getting paid, I tell them they have to look at this as a job. And I know that's insulting. They feel that they shouldn't look at it as a job, but it puts things in strict boundaries and limits and parameters where they know that they can say, I can take care of you until maybe you become incontinent and I can't provide that I don't feel comfortable providing that in care, level of care. Or it may be that the patient, their family member becomes aggressive and they have fear. So those are things. And sexually inappropriate behavior is very real. And that makes a lot of daughters taking care of their fathers uncomfortable. So those things need to be addressed up front. But the other thing they need to do is realize that many provide 99% of family caregivers provide unpaid care. And if there is money that's going to be spent down to hit Medicaid, to meet the requirements, they need to have strict documentation of the care that they provided, but they can also charge for this care and have money for them to live on. And that's important as well. Plus, I want them to be able to say, I have vacation, I need times off, so that if they have uninvolved family members, that they can either help provide that care physically, or they need to financially, if everybody else can't pay for that, or that money should be used to pay for help to let the caregiver have that break from the family, from this, as they spend down their assets. So I'd like for you to address that a little bit, because I want it all to be legal.
Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned look back periods, and there's like a 5-year, 60-month look back period. And when you're trying to qualify for Medicaid, Medicaid's gonna look back and say, okay, you say you meet our criteria, you say you meet our guidelines, but here's a $200,000 gift you made to the neighbor or to your son.
Yes.
For no reason. There's no basis for that.
Correct.
Now you on the book show that you qualify for Medicaid. That addresses what you're suggesting, Diane. And one of the ways to spend down the right way. And that would be that, let's say I have and you use the example of an adult daughter. Maybe she's in a position to care for me and I need care. I don't need intensive medical attention at this point. I can actually pay her for her services. We live in a society where it's very difficult for people to do things for free unless they're really independently wealthy. Yeah. Let me provide for you as my daughter to care for me.
Yeah.
That is a spin down that's completely recognized by Medicaid. And it is a way to demonstrate, okay, you're doing this for this person for the right reasons. It's not just you're just making this huge get for no reason just to qualify.
The thing is, caregivers need to understand it needs to be done right up front. You can't retrospectively look at, say, I've provided this amount of care and this is the money that you're giving. So I think it's a really good, important way to keep track of money and funds and still be within legal parameters. Because otherwise, a person, because I know I work for several nursing home chains, they will not let the person admit to the nursing home until they have the money. Let's say the $200,000 gift was given, and this does happen. I know Medicare will say, or the nursing home will say, we'll take you in, but you have to private pay up to that $200,000.
That's right.
Yeah, before Medicaid will kick in. So unless you come up with that private pay, and families are like, oh my God, and then they are forced to bring them home. So I really think it's really important that we educate people on how to protect themselves financially. And one point I want to let my listeners know, family caregivers provide over $650 million of unpaid care a year. And that's a lot of free care. And whether your senior is insulted that you would even think that you should be get paid for things, let me tell you, to my caregivers out there, 63% of family caregivers become seriously ill or pass before the person they're caring for. And that's because of all the stress that's put on them over a period of time. And a caregiving journey can be on the average 6 to 7 years, but can go on as long as 20. You need to prepare for your future as well and to take care of yourself. So this is something that I want to make my caregivers aware of, because it's so important that they really understand what they're getting into when they provide, because so many of them just feel they do it out of love until they don't, and then they get angry and there's rage and all those things. So
that's right.
But now I want to talk about advanced directives. Now, what role do they play in protecting both the individual and their family during healthcare crisis?
Yeah, and I'll address that question, but the thing that keeps coming in my mind, Diane, is being proactive. Planning ahead. You have to plan ahead for these eventualities, because you don't know what it's going to be. You have to be proactive. And I try to preach that every chance I get. So now back to advanced directives. Gosh, it really provides not only peace of mind for the family. And so I'm thinking of a family where you have 1 or 2 adult children and their loved one is truly, they're terminal. They're not going to recover. They have the treating physicians saying this individual is not going to recover. So what should we do? And when there's not anything in place, it leaves a lot of guesswork. So you have adult children, maybe, and I'm just pulling this out, maybe their son wants to keep dad hooked up on the machine, and very vague terms, hooked up on the machine, but you get what I mean by that.
Yes.
For a year's old end. And then you have the daughter saying, no, I spoke with dad, and dad said, give me about a week. And if there's no hope of my recovery and I'm really truly deemed terminal, then let me go, let me pass. And that creates a lot of conflict, as you can imagine. So an advanced directive is fundamental and a way to convey, while you still have mental capacity, here's what I want to happen in the event, God forbid, something like that happens. Now, maybe you're never that person, that you're not in a situation where those hard decisions need to be made, but how much more loving is it to let your family know, this is what I want. These are the wishes that I have for myself and my care. I love you enough to provide you clear direction on what I want to occur.
So important. And one of the points that I want to make is, when you do a healthcare power of attorney, don't make it so that 2 siblings or 2 people are over your choices. Make it 1. You can have someone back them up, but I can't tell you how many times over my decades of nursing, I've had the 2 power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, argue about what the person wanted because they didn't have an advance directive. Dad told me this, or dad told me that. Or there might be the sensible one says, and then there's the the emotional part that says, I want to hold on to my dad so he can be on feeding tubes or a ventilator because I can't let him go. And at least putting things in writing very specifically and talking about it and making sure everybody around you, like I'm 72 and I have chronic pain. I'm basically in a good health, except I have lots of chronic pain. And I've told my son, I have only one now, but I told my son, and he's a nurse, I said, look, I don't want anything done because my body's old, it's tired. And I have it in writing very specifically. I don't want antibiotics if I have pneumonia. I don't want feeding tubes. I don't want those things. I've had a good life, and this is what I want for me. And my older son, before he passed, used to tease me that, Mom, you shouldn't make Casey in charge of your health care. And I say, why? He say, if you have a thumbnail, a hangnail, he's going to pull the plug.
We all have different personality, that's for sure.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Oh, but you know what? You want to have somebody who's going to honor your wishes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. And that's what's important. And I see the trauma when there's two, one for financial and one for healthcare is really important. So I'm putting my 2 cents worth in just from my experience.
Yeah. Well, it's truth to power, right?
Yeah.
You've been a nurse for how long? You've seen it.
4 years.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen it all. From your experience, Richard, what are the most common mistakes people make when it comes to estate planning?
The one that immediately jumps out in my mind is people that maybe they did a will 20 years ago and they think it's, oh, I got a will, I'm good. That's problematic because where I was 20 years ago is vastly different from where I am now. I didn't have one of my children 20 years ago. So that's one of the big mistakes that I think is often made is people just thinking it's a one and done. Yeah. I would advise all my clients to look at your wills, especially this day and age where it seems like there's something that changes by the month almost. Yeah. Look at your will, have an estate planning attorney take a look at your will about every 3 to 5 years. And because it really, depending on where you're on in the stage of your life, it might need updated. So that's a huge one. The other thing is just assuming that people know what you want. That's not always the case. Or it could be, depending on your level of capacity, mental capacity, maybe you've told one loved one one thing and another loved one something else.
Yep.
So they're both telling the truth when they said, Dad said he wants to remain on a feeding tube for 6 months. And the other says, Dad said, do not engage in extraordinary efforts to keep me alive. Yeah. They could both be telling the truth. And that's why it's so important to have that stuff in writing. So you're conveying what it is that you truly need.
And there are topics to talk about. And I do have in my elder care communication course, lots of different techniques and approaches to this subject to help people address it because seniors stubborn and they're in denial, and a lot of them are very private and they don't want anybody to know anything about them. And it's challenging for the caregivers to address these issues. But like the one that took 2 years that I just did in their 80s, Lord have mercy. But it's really important that you just be consistent and kind about it and just understand that people don't want to address the death and end of life. Oh my God, they're going to live for forever. I had a 90-year-old uncle that after his wife died, went to a senior center and he was still fit and active. And he said, I'm not going back there because they're all old people.
Yeah.
And I hear that so often. Yeah. So can you explain how trusts help safeguard assets and ensure family needs are addressed?
Sure. So the nice thing about it, there's probably 8 or 9 trusts. Okay. There's a lot of common ones. The most common are ones that are really designed to where you can just control your assets as much as you want, like a revocable living trust. Yeah. It's a way to avoid probate. It's a way to control some things, but at the same time, there's some limitations to that, but that's right for some people. There are trusts we'd already hinted at this and talked about this a little bit, but you can have a trust depending on which attorney you speak with, but it's basically, it's called a Medicaid asset protection trust. It's a trust created to help you qualify for Medicaid in the event that you need long-term care. But the primary thing for with a trust is you have a lot more flexibility because the trust owns everything. You can have the trust own, if your home is paid for, you can have the trust own your home. If you have literally just about anything, and you can create a trust for that, so to speak.
That's fascinating. Know all of that. So that's good information, especially for people who want to be in control of everything up until their last breath or even beyond.
That's right. This is the way to do it beyond.
There. Yep, exactly. Now, I want to talk about families facing dementia or somebody that has a chronic illness. What legal protections should be put in place early?
So one of the things that, and this has been an interesting, I'm speaking to Kentucky, it just immediately jumped out of mine. And there's a new law in Kentucky. It was effective in 2024. It's called sex law. And it enables him, I think it's something that's going to develop throughout the U.S. It's a way, because now all of us have family members and all of us have adult children and people that really understand and want to have our best interests at heart. So sex law is more expansive. It enables people that aren't traditionally considered biological relatives or something like that. They can actually step in and help someone. So that's one of the things that's very interesting.
And that's because we have generations now that aren't having children, and they're going to have to depend on other people or fiduciaries or legal or attorneys to represent them for their everything, setting up their care and everything. So that's really important, I think. How do healthcare providers view and rely on legal documents when making urgent medical decisions?
So that is largely, I hate to say it, but it is kind of region specific. And
yes, it is.
Yeah. So you can have, for example, a good example is West Virginia. So I'm licensed practice law in West Virginia and Kentucky. West Virginia, they do not like what they call springing powers of attorney, which in essence, if I have a springing power of attorney and Diane is my successor, or they're my agent, so to speak, it reads to the extent I become incapacitated. So my treating physician says Richard Beckner's incapacitated, Diane can step in for me. A lot of healthcare providers in West Virginia, for example, even though that's part of state law, we're really reluctant or recalcitrant to follow that because presumably it's exposure to liability and things like that if they make the wrong decision. Other states, Kentucky, for example, Kentucky's a commonwealth. I guess it's not technically a state, but the Commonwealth of Kentucky is okay with a springing power of attorney. So that's another good reason to have an attorney, have a discussion with an attorney where you reside. What does this look like? Having said that, healthcare practitioners, let's assume that this is okay. So we're in Kentucky and I have a power of attorney for my wife. The medical professionals, first and foremost, are going to make sure that there's one on record. And that's something that I advise all my clients to do. You don't copy the will, powers of attorney. You copy, especially durable powers of attorney, get them to all your PCP, your primary care physician, and the hospital that you normally go to, because we all have a tendency to go to our doctors. We're comfortable with this facility X. Go ahead and give them, everything's electronic now, so they'll just scan it. And now the doctor can look, oh, okay, Richard Beckner has a durable power of attorney or a medical power of attorney. We have the record of it. It gives me permission to do X, Y, Z. That permission was created in consultation, for example, if I'm doing it with an attorney and the client. So the client says, I want this. That's what the document's going to reflect.
I'm going to a tip here that people don't understand. They think because they have an advance directive in place and it says it's do not resuscitate, that people will follow that. And that is not so, because if you are a do not resuscitate and you are at home and your family members call and say, mom's on the floor, she's not breathing, they come in and they do CPR, even though you give them they're in advanced directive, they don't want this. And that will continue through to the ER. And what I tell people is when you get to a point when you know that you're, like for me, a physician-ordered life-saving treatment. There's several different names for it. There's MOLST and PULSE, medical order. People should get those in place. Ask the doctor what it is. That will be honored because it's like a script. It's a prescription from the doctor. It's a legal document that will say, this is like saying, they will say, do not resuscitate, or what measures you can do if you have this PULSE in place. And if there are times like I'm still young, I don't need it. But when I get to a point in time where I'm starting to decline, yes, I have a DNR in place, an advanced directive that says everything. But if somebody calls to the hospital, or you're in the hospital, or you're being admitted to the hospital, and you have an episode where you need resuscitated all of a sudden, because it does happen, you had the DNR. You can't say I had the DNR. You have to have that PULSE in place. It's just a legal document that wherever you are can be honored by medical health professionals and first responders. And that's something, because people say, I'm just going to tattoo DNR across my chest or my forehead. And it doesn't work that way. Yeah. But there are things you can actively put in place to make sure that your wishes are honored, but you have to know about it and you have to put them in place.
Yeah, that's an important observation, Diane. That's right.
Well, so much.
And if it's worded the right way, it can be applicable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every state has a different form of it. You just have to look it up and find out what the right term is for your state and what the form looks like. And you have to have that decision and talk with your doctor and hopefully your POA, your healthcare power of attorney.
Yeah.
Now, what can happen if families wait too long and essential documents aren't in place before an emergency? Oh, I see this way too much.
Yeah. So depends on the emergency, depends on the issue.
Yeah.
But it's an administrative nightmare.
Yes.
It's stressful, it's expensive, it's all of the above. But let's say, I'll just use an example. Again, I keep picking on this Richard Beckner guy, but let's say Richard Beckner becomes incapacitated and he doesn't have anything in place. What's my wife going to do? She's likely to say, okay, this needs to happen.
Yes.
She has no authority. She can't do that. Even though she's been my wife for 25 years and she knows if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And I say that all the time. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen.
Yep.
You need something in place. Otherwise, she's going to have to file a petition. And this is pretty universal depending on where you are in the States. You have to file a petition. And the courts differ on what court oversees an application or a petition. But she would have to petition a judge to rule or deem me incapacitated before she can even proceed in trying to care for me. That is time consuming. That is expensive. The doctor doesn't know. The doctor's not my treating physician. So the doctor's probably going to have to the judge will have to have a hearing. We'll have to pull in my primary care physician or my doctor and have them testify as to my mental competency or on and on and on. Just for my wife to take care of
that so many times, and families are just in shock that this is happening, and it does happen if you're not proactive and prepared.
Yeah.
So how do you help clients balance cost effectiveness with creating a thorough legal plan?
So I would never suggest that they just go with the first attorney they speak with. Be prepared. Have some questions. Word of mouth is always good. So if your neighbor happens to know somebody that they trust and has done their estate planning, that's great. But just don't rely on that, even though maybe you really trust your neighbor. Talk to at least 2 attorneys and see what they offer. See if you gel with them, if they're the right person, the right individual. I have one colleague, he has about as much personality as this wall.
I know.
He's excellent. He's excellent. He's great, but people can't communicate with.
Yes, yes.
There's no understanding.
Yes.
So make sure that the person that you're speaking with, the attorney or the law firm that you're speaking with, they understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
And are they actually listening to what you're saying? Not so much, here's my plan for you and here's what you need to do.
Yes.
You need to guide that conversation.
I had two situations where I've had very wealthy clients, very wealthy, and they had no family members. And the attorney was covering for them, taking care of everything. And both these attorneys were not people persons. If they were great with managing the money and stuff. And I was lucky that these people were intelligent enough and had enough forethought to have somebody like me come in to advocate for them, so that I would just have to call these attorneys and say, hey, this is what we need. This is how we need it. And he had to approve the finances and stuff. But I was his eyes and ears, and I communicated with the doctors and making sure that the client's wishes were honored. And I set up home care in the home and that kind of thing, and or advocated for them on a lot of different levels. And so I think sometimes that if you do have that kind of attorney where you think that he's going to be great for you, but he's not a people person, you might consider using an elder care or geriatric care manager or somebody in that capacity, because I people don't know what they don't know. And so many attorneys are really good at what they do, but they're not the people.
That's it.
And they don't communicate well. And that is really important. And you want somebody that you feel comfortable with. So, there may be, you need an extra layer if you do find somebody that is great with your everything else, but can't speak to people in a caring, empathetic way.
That's it.
That's really the best way.
Yeah, that's really it.
If he's not smiling, I don't want to talk to him. When an attorney will smile at me or me, but I'm just saying, you want somebody who can smile and interact and maybe have a little sense of humor. And some just don't. But you can be brilliant and still know what you're doing.
Sure.
Human side.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all humans, right?
Yes. What advice would you give caregivers who feel overwhelmed by the legal, financial, and emotional responsibilities they face?
Wow. How much time do you have? That's unfortunately, that's where you get a lot of caregiver burnout. So whether you're a personal caregiver of someone, a loved one in their home, or whether you're a professional caregiver, like a nurse, for example. That's the advice that I try to give, what I have given to people in the past, are primarily nurses, primarily people that are saying, I can't do this any longer.
Yes.
So why are you doing this? What's your reason for doing this?
Yes.
Is it probably not to make a ton of money, especially if you're a personal caregiver and you're taking care of that? So it's out of love, right? So be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Mindful of the fact that you're doing this as an extreme example, extreme display of love, whether or not dad knows that you're actually even exhibiting that love. And that's part of your, I'm getting really grandiose now, part of your purpose, right?
Absolutely. 100%. I tell my family caregivers, you have to be able to ask for help. And I think that's really important. And I encourage them. What I promote is building a care team partner support group, people that you can surround yourself with that will provide practical assistance to the little things that you can't get done. Maybe you just need a ride to the doctors. Maybe you just need somebody. Now you can pay to have groceries delivered, but maybe somebody can come in and just put the groceries away. Or how about somebody coming in to help clean the house? Or there's so many things like walk the dog or take the pet to the groomers. Put people around you that will offer practical assistance. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be paid for. There are people out there. One of the consistent things that I find is people want to help.
They do.
But
the words around them, and they want to help.
absolutely. And I would do anything for anybody, but just ask. But caregivers feel like they're a failure if they ask, and they have to get over that.
Yeah, and that's so fundamental. I can't think of any situation where we should be expected to do it all ourselves. We need support. We need help. And going back to my faith a little bit, but I know growing up in the church that I grew up in, the whole entire community, the whole entire membership, so to speak, would help out somebody that was ill. They needed food. They needed to ride to the doctor, to your point, Diane, or things like that. I mean, they want to help and find those individuals that are willing to do that.
We've lost our sense of community and that's really sad because now things feel like they're a burden, like placing a burden on everybody. And when you have a community, it's expected that everybody helps one another from birth to death, and you all do whatever you need to do to help each other. And we've lost that, and it's really unfortunate. And we need to get back to finding community. And finally, Richard, if somebody is ready to get started, what's the very first step they should take today to begin putting these protections in place?
Probably call Diane.
Oh, yeah. Pass the buck.
Yeah. But just depending on where you live, obviously. But kidding aside, people like you, Diane, that's really in this for the right reason. And they're trying to help people navigate and coordinate these very difficult decisions.
Yes.
Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Not yesterday.
Exactly. Yes.
Not tomorrow, now.
And for the seniors, the family caregivers, don't give up. Keep trying. Do different techniques, approaches to get things in place.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
And I tell them, the family caregivers, put them in place for yourself as well.
Yeah, because if depending on where you are in your journey, if you're just starting or you're years in, you're going to have different levels of caregiver fatigue, as they say. Yeah, it's a real thing, and you have to take time for yourself.
Compassion fatigue is very real. Absolutely. Any final last words to my caregivers out there, Rich? How do they reach you if they wanted to reach out to you in Kentucky or West Virginia?
Sure. Yeah, you can reach out to me by phone call or email. It's probably the easiest way. Email address is rbeckner. So it's RBECKNER, rbeckner at faithful, like you would think, faithful. E is in Eagle, L is in Larry, S is in Sam.com. That's Faithful Elder Law Solutions, or 859-419-7311 is another way to call me. Feel free to call me. I'm the one that answers the phone. I'm very selective in who I represent and who I help. But if I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you to my utmost.
I'm the one that answers the phone for me too. Okay. And I'm that way too. I want to be selective with people that I want to work with. Want to work with me. All that information will be put on a permanent page on our site so that we can get links to you and to your website as well. To my family caregivers out there, you are the most important part of the caregiving equation. Without you, it all falls apart. So please learn to be gentle with yourself. Practice self-care every day because you are worth it.